Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you realize that most of these members who are uneasy with me taking a party position do not have a definite political party at the moment, Mr. Speaker. That is why they are envious, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I was making my submission as to why I, the senator of Kakamega, elected on an ANC party, is supporting the BBI, Mr. Speaker. And my focal attention was drawn on the fact that this document provides that we are going to strengthen devolution in the sense that the resources that are now going to go to our counties are going to be increased. Mr. Speaker, our counties have been surviving with a mere 15% and sometimes even less, Mr. Speaker. But this document has provided for a 35% provision, Mr. Speaker, whereby county governments will gain in a very big way, Mr. Speaker, when this bill is passed, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we pass this bill, it is also important, Mr. Speaker, to remind the players of devolution that giving you 35% is not enough, that the solutions of the problems facing our counties will not be achieved when we pass this bill. Yes, we are giving you 35%, but it is important, Mr. Speaker, for the county governments, Mr. Speaker, to use this money appropriately, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've seen county governments misusing and misappropriating funds, Mr. Speaker. That is why, Mr. Speaker, in this dispensation, we've had so many cases of impeachments, Mr. Speaker. And it is not, Mr. Speaker, our role as Senate, Mr. Speaker, is first to defend devolution. But we need to ensure that the monies that go to the county governments, Mr. Speaker, are well spent, Mr. Speaker. This brings me back to what I saw in Naivasha, Mr. Speaker. When we were converging in Naivasha, Mr. Speaker, members of the National Assembly, Mr. Speaker, ganged up and insisted that the Constituency Development Fund must be in the Constitutional Amendment Bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to blame ourselves because, Mr. Speaker, we were unable to ensure that the Oversight Fund is encapsulated in this document, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, to know that most of the senators are unable to conduct their oversight roles in the county assembly, in the county governments, because they lack the infrastructure and the monetary muscle, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that they oversight the county governments, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in a county like Kakamega, Kakamega is a very vast county.
I can see a point of intervention from Cherargei.
Hey.
Mr. Speaker, is it in order to say, because, and then I am the chair emeritus of JLAC, we did draft submissions that were presented by the then Deputy Speaker, Professor Kithure Kindiki, in KICC before the BBI Secretariat. Is it in order for the Honorable Senator and leader of Kakamega delegation to tell this House that the Senate did not make their position known, yet we did submit upon your directions before the BBI Secretariat? Is it in order to mislead when people are taking chai and mandazi in Naivasha to refer that it was a serious forum? Is it in order?
Mr. Speaker, I think we have various ways of achieving.
There is another intervention, Senator Malala, from Senator Mogeni.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, you know this is a House of Record. And Mr. Speaker, Senator Malala, who is my good friend, is creating an impression before the House that in Naivasha, when members of National Assembly were agitating for CDF, that we never agitated for an oversight fund for the Senate. But everybody who was in Naivasha, and I have senators around me, will confirm that we did make presentation, and I'm the one who spoke on behalf of senators, that the oversight fund should be included in the Constitutional Amendment Bill. But what happened, Mr. Speaker, is that whereas the position of MPs was taken on board, and included in the proposed amendments to Article 206A, the position of the Senate was not taken on board. So it is misleading, Mr. Speaker, to state that the senators did not agitate. I think the correct position should be, Mr. Speaker, that we did put forth our position, but the drafters of this bill, for reasons that we don't know, opted to take on board the position of members of National Assembly, but left out the request that was put forth by the Senate. And Mr. Speaker, if you read the BBI report, my name appears on page 166 as one of the members of parliament who made a detailed representation before the BBI task force. So you should not be left to mislead the House, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Sakaja.
Mr. Speaker, I know we are cautious, as we should be, of COVID. But my good chairman, Senator Omogeni, is doing us a great disservice. We love hearing his contribution, but when he wears 5 masks, you know, he's muffled. He's muffled, we can't hear his voice. And I am sure he had a good point. Could you just assure him to reduce at least even 3 and use 1 so that we can hear him when he's speaking? I've had nothing at all, Mr. Speaker. And he's a senior counsel. Don't deny us the benefit of hearing you, Senator Mugeni.
Okay, but at least he has spoken. You're saying is 1 mask is enough. It's like closing your eyes at night.
I'm just wearing 2, not 5.
Senator Malala, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm well guided by my colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I was submitting as follows that it is important that the 35% of the resources that we shall be pumping to the county governments must be used appropriately, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we've seen county governments, and I will not mention names today. We've seen county governments which have not fulfilled their promises since they were inaugurated in 2017, and others even in 2013. Mr. Speaker, we have seen governors being brought before the CPIC committee and being brought here for impeachment, Mr. Speaker, having very grave allegations, Mr. Speaker, on misuse of public funds. And therefore, we want to give them notice, Mr. Speaker, that the 35% that we are taking to the counties is not money meant for corruption, is not money meant for accumulation of wealth, Mr. Speaker. It is very important, Mr. Speaker, for the county governors to know that we have fought for this 35%, and the 35% is meant to help the Mwananchi, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, prioritization of county projects is very key, Mr. Speaker. We have seen governments and county governments which prioritize only brick and mortar development, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, county governments are unable to initiate projects which are going to stimulate our respective economies at the county level, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have seen counties which have tried coming up with cottage industries, but other counties, Mr. Speaker, and I want to be very specific on this issue, Mr. Speaker. When you come to Kakamega County, Mr. Speaker, since 2013, we have no single flagship project which was launched and is functioning at the moment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is very important, Mr. Speaker, as we take the 35% to the county governments, Mr. Speaker, we ensure as senators, we ensure that the county governments use the money in the appropriate way, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm alive of the fact that this is the last financial year to the 2022 elections, Mr. Speaker. It is important, Mr. Speaker, as senators, having been given powers to oversight the county governments, we ensure that, Mr. Speaker, that when the county governments will be making their budgets of 2021-2022, we ensure that we compel the county governments to complete their flagship projects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the second reason as to why we are supporting BBI, we need to walk down the memory lane and remind ourselves, how did this BBI concept come up? Mr. Speaker, I want to remind ourselves that the BBI process began through the handshake between President Uhuru Kenyatta and Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga. Mr. Speaker, this came up after a very divisive election in 2017 and even in the previous years, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the handshake, which gave birth to BBI, was meant to solve certain problems. And we need to ask ourselves, has this document issued solutions to the said problems, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, one of the problems that we faced before the handshake was this country was getting into, in every electioneering year, Mr. Speaker, we were getting into a divisive election, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to remember the 2007 elections, whereby blood was shed, Mr. Speaker, just because of a vote, Mr. Speaker. I want to remember the 2017 elections, Mr. Speaker. We ran around this country, Mr. Speaker, protesting. We even risked our lives, Mr. Speaker, to go and swear in a people's president, Mr. Speaker. And these are the reason why this document, Mr. Speaker, was brought forth. So we need to ask ourselves, has this document sorted out the issue of a divisive election, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, one among the key issues that the BBI, the handshake, brought about was the shared prosperity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to speak, and I want to talk to the young senators of this House. I want to talk to Senator Cherargei. I want to talk to Senator Sakaja. I want to talk to Senator Anwar. We need to have an opportunity to speak out our minds at this time. This is our moment. When James Orengo was a youth, he spoke his mind out. When Raila Odinga was a youth, he spoke his mind out. I want to urge the youth of this House, Mr. Speaker, to speak your mind. And I want to speak my mind on this particular issue, Mr. Speaker. Shared prosperity. Shared prosperity. Mr. Speaker, if we do not sort out this problem at this juncture, we are lying to ourselves. This document will remain to be an academic document, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we need to remain focused on the issue of putting our country together, cohesion and integration. And the only way we can achieve this, Mr. Speaker, is by ensuring that the resources and the opportunities that are available for this country are shared equitably, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Nderitu, what's your point of intervention?
I hope they're not eating it.
Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to get the clarification from the Senator of Kakamega, whether Senator Anwar, Senator Sakaja, Senator Cherargei.
Senator Malala, you are being addressed. So
Yes,
take your seat. You are
Mr. Speaker, I was wondering whether Senator for Kakamega was in order to ask whether Senator Sakaja, Senator Anwar, Senator Cherargei, whether they have not spoken their mind. I'm wondering whether he's speaking on their behalf or they have not spoken their mind. I didn't get.
I think you just made reference to the youthful senators who are here that this is the moment to speak. It doesn't mean they have not spoken. The old ones have already spoken their mind. That's what he said. Yeah. They spoke their mind when they were youths. Yes. That's what he said. Senator Malala
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I hope they're not eating into my time, Mr. Speaker. And those interventions are disrupting my thought process, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if we don't solve this problem of an equal distribution of resources and opportunities in this country, then this BBI document will remain to be an academic document. Mr. Speaker, we must tell our people right now, Mr. Speaker, that there are certain parts of this country which have been neglected, Mr. Speaker. I want to speak for my people here today, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we speak right now, the Western region has been neglected by this government. There is no single factory that is operating in Western region. The sugarcane farmers are languishing in abject poverty, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is true. We do not have a single industry to employ our youth in the entire Western region. Nzoia Sugar Company is closed. Mumia Sugar Company is closed. Chemilil is closed. Moroni is closed, Mr. Speaker. Sony Sugar Company is closed. Webuye Pan Paper is closed, Mr. Speaker. We have not seen the enthusiasm of the government to sort out the problems in Western Province, Mr. Speaker. We have seen a lot of energy, Mr. Speaker, in this government, Mr. Speaker.
Do you want to be informed, Senator Malala?
Mr. Speaker, they're interrupting my thought process.
No, we will, I'll add you some more time. Do you want to be informed?
Yeah, I can listen to you.
Okay, Senator Linturi.
You know, there's a powerful legislator and a good man who at times speaks for the good of his people. But Mr. Speaker, when he gets to situations where he laments of what is happening or continues to happen, I think, Mr. Speaker, he must be able to know and take his people in a different trajectory, considering that major problem has been, number one, their failure to read the signs of the day. And because as they wait to complain, they are waiting for an endorsement, and they can't see even the presidency itself is divided, and that document is not meant to bring unity because the center is not holding.
What's your point of, there's a point of intervention, Mr. Malala?
Mr. Speaker, is it in order for the future of Western Kenya and the future of Kakamega County, Senator Cleophas Malala, the former deputy minority leader, to say, is it in order to say that BBI brought prosperity, unity, and peace, and including economic prosperity, then go ahead and lament that there is nothing that is happening in Western Kenya? Why is he having double speak? And yet he's saying the handshake has promoted peace, has promoted unity, has promoted development. Is it in order for Senator Cleophas Malala to double speak, to speak from both sides of his mouth on this issue? He should either tell us he should not become a hermaphrodite, Mr. Speaker, by saying he's supporting the BBI, then he goes ahead and also bashes it. He's giving us a kiss of Judas, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Malala, I know you are equal to the task. In terms of language, you can respond to.
Mr. Speaker, I'm just speaking cue from my father, Senator Wetangula, who speaks his mind and votes otherwise, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I was interrupted, Mr. Speaker.
There's a point of order from Senator Wambua.
Mr. Speaker, is the Senator of Kakamega in order to impute improper motives on his uncle, Senator Moses Masika Wetangula? Can he give an example where Senator spoke differently from how he voted?
I hope you are not holding brief for Senator Wetangula. I'm sure Wetangula will come and he will answer him appropriately. Senator Malala.
Mr. Speaker, back to my point, Mr. Speaker. I was trying to illustrate how certain regions in this country, Mr. Speaker, have been neglected to the advantage of certain other regions, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would want to live in a country whereby the sugarcane farmer in Western region, Mr. Speaker, welcome, Senator. Mr. Speaker, I was speaking on the issue of the farmer, the sugarcane farmer, and I have said on the floor of this house that Senator Wetangula has been on the forefront fighting for the farmers of the Western region, Mr. Speaker. And I want to join you, Mr. Speaker. in saying that I want to see a day in this country, Mr. Speaker, when the sugarcane farmer in Kakamega is treated the same way with a coffee farmer in Central Province, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to see a day in this country when the sugarcane farmer or a maize farmer in Kakamega County is treated the same way with an Irish potato farmer in Kirinyaga County, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, that is what we call shared prosperity, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when you look at the public service, Mr. Speaker, it is quite a shame that some of the communities in this country are not well represented in the public service. And I hope that BBI is going to sort out this problem. Let us not use, Mr. Speaker, these exercises, Mr. Speaker, to woodwink some of us to pass it and then go back to the normal practices we've had, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Kimani Wamatangi, what's your